Hi guys, so this is Kathy from Eagle Condor Center, and I promised you guys that I would do a webinar explaining the energies of the solar eclipse of August 12th, yesterday, and I want to keep my promise. Um, However, I have to say, I originally intended to make this very pretty and do slides with photos and images and all of this stuff and make it really nice. But then I realized I don't really have any talent in that area. So I figured that you would probably be more interested in having the information than all the bells and whistles. So I'm just trusting that you're going to forgive me for that and just listen to what I have to say and maybe use your imaginations a little bit to imagine how it can be applied in your life. Okay, so I also want to say that the system of astrology I use is called vibrational astrology, and it's a little bit different probably from some of the traditional Western systems that you're used to. And the main difference is that it's evidence-based. And what that means basically is that there's scientific methods that have been used to research all of the information in terms of what the energies of the planets and the aspects and all of those things mean over the course of thousands of charts. So there's actually data backing up the meanings that I'm going to be describing today. And, while I can't prove beyond, any doubt whatsoever that everything is accurate, because the research is always being done and we're always updating based on new things that we're finding, I can say with a very good degree of confidence that the information I'm sharing is accurate because it's been shown through thousands and thousands of charts to work the way that we're presenting it now. So I hope that gives you some confidence in what I'm saying. So without further ado, I'm going to show you the chart and ask you to follow along as I describe it and what it means. So let me pull this up. Okay, now you should be able to see it. And so this is the energy of the eclipse. And you can see it already just from looking at it that it's got this beautiful pattern. Some people, including myself, see it as kind of like a house shape. You can see a couple of kites in it from like here is one, and then here is another one. You can see this beautiful grand trine. You can see two minor trines here, minor grand trines, that is. And then you also see this cross-cutting red energy as well. So I'll explain what all of that means as we go through it. But basically, the short end of it is it's a very powerful eclipse. And yeah, so let's get into it. All right. So here at the top of the chart, this eclipse did happen nearly at the top of the day, 1:36 p.m. Eastern time. So that's why the sun and the moon are at the top of the chart here. And you can see they're right together, smack dab together at 20 degrees, 2 minutes in the sign of Leo. This is the glyph or the symbol for Leo. And so what's that mean? That means basically that it was not only an eclipse, it was also a new moon. When the sun and the moon are exactly together, where the moon was blocking the view to the sun from the earth, that is a new moon. So that gives an element of new beginnings to this. It's like starting a new cycle. And this one is particularly important because, most new moons are for 1 month, but when it's an eclipse, it's actually for 6 months. So we've got this energy with us for 6 whole months, all the way through February 6, 2027. So it's really important to know this and to use it because we're going to be working and developing it during the entire next 6 months. It's going to be like an underlying aspect to what we're doing out in the world. So it's pretty big. So, okay, so what else have we got? The sun and the moon. The sun and the moon. So the sun is what's clear and present in our reality and what we see, what is really clear, what's really self-evident almost to us because it seems so obvious. So that's one piece of it. And then we've got the moon, which is tied to our emotional body. It's everything from the past that's being reflected into the present. So that's, all of our moods come from that. All of our attitudes come from that. All of our beliefs come from that. All of our habits also come from that. So the moon kind of rules, quote unquote, all of those things, and it has to do with all of those things. So it's like, how are we able to see now how our moods and how our attitudes and how our beliefs and how our habits are affecting what we see in our current reality? Now, this is all happening, like I said, in the sign of Leo. So what's Leo about? Leo is about expressing our unique self, expressing our unique talents, our unique gifts, our unique energy in the world. And it's not necessarily loud or showy or prideful or anything like that. It's just authentic. It's just not interested in what someone else says we should be, or it's not interested in conforming to other people or to anyone outside of ourselves, really. So this is asking us to really look at how our emotions and how our moods and how our beliefs and all of that inform what we're putting out there in the world. And are there any changes we need to make in that? Is there anything? Are we being too small? Are we limiting ourselves in some way? And the reason I say that is because these two are together with this upside down U shape, which is the symbol for the South Node, which is also in the sign of Leo. So that's kind of the South Node, first of all, is about it's about what we're comfortable with and what we're used to and what we're really familiar with. And sometimes we can get too comfortable, right? We can be in our comfort, our little comfort zone, our little box, and not want to break out of it because we're afraid of what's out there in the big wide world, right? So this eclipse is asking us to look at our comfort zone and look at what we've always done and how we've always shown up in the world, right? How we've always expressed ourselves, and notice what's really true for us still and what's not. And is there any way that you've been expressing yourself in the world that is limiting who you could be, who you could become, and is making you too small and needs to be released at this time? Eclipses are often about sudden releases, and they can happen very quickly. And if you're not releasing, that's people are a little bit afraid of eclipses sometimes, because if you're not releasing things that need to be released voluntarily, something could happen. The universe could throw a curveball your way that's going to force you to do that. So it's important to be aware of that and to really do your own work at this time of the eclipse portal. And I say portal, it's because eclipses always come in pairs, at least. Sometimes there's even three, but in most cases it's two eclipses, and that's the case this time. So we've got yesterday's eclipse, August 12th. That was the solar eclipse, right? And then we've got the lunar eclipse that's coming up in 2 weeks on August 28th. So that'll be the end of the eclipse portal. But in this time, these 2 weeks, it's extra important to really look at your own comfort zone and really make some decisions about how you want to show up, and what you want to change, what you want to let go of, and what's limiting you. And it's not necessarily other people. This is about you yourself, your unique self, right? So it's about how are you limiting yourself? How are you afraid and not being brave in terms of stepping out and being who you need to be in the world? And what do you need to release in order to allow yourself to express your talents, to learn new skills, and to put them out there in that world? As you're going forward in these next 6 months. So that's the immediate work for us now. Okay. Now, on the other side of this, we've got the sun and moon, and then over here we've got the planet Jupiter, this purple thing here, and then we've got the planet Mercury, this thing with little antennas on the head, right? So Jupiter, and these are also in the sign of Leo, of course. So Jupiter is about expanding. It's about making things bigger, making things more, making things better in some cases, but just amplifying things and kind of like putting out the loudspeaker in a way. That's Jupiter. And it's also associated with our social circle as well. So it's like connecting to more people, getting, going broader in a way. Okay. So we've got that. And then we've got Mercury also as part of this. And Mercury is about how we think. It's about how we associate ideas and connect information and how we communicate as well, how we speak about it, how we write about whatever ideas we're thinking about. Um, so with Jupiter and Mercury together, that's about expanding your thinking, expanding your perspective, um, possibly being louder, right? Especially in the sign of Leo. And I said it's not always being louder, but sometimes it is. So how are you getting your voice out there in a bigger way, in however you prefer to communicate, and however you prefer to express, right? And with the new moon, it's about doing that in a new way that's, again, bigger and more expressive and more communicative and more authentic, Leo, more yourself, more unique to you. Okay. And getting out of your comfort zone. What do you need to leave behind in order to give yourself permission, so to speak? Because there's no one else who's going to give you permission. You need to do it for yourself with Leo. So what do you need to release in order to give yourself permission to be that bigger, more expansive, more bigger picture thinking as well? Get that side of yourself out there. So we've got that. Okay. So that's kind of the core of the eclipse energy itself. There's two other pieces to it that I want to talk about right away. And that's these two lines down here to Neptune from the sun and the moon. Here's Neptune, this kind of turquoise color planet down here. And Neptune is about our ideals. It's about, in some cases, our spirituality, or in other cases, it's about earning more money. It's whatever gets you out of bed in the morning, and whatever is like magical to you and just like lights you up and inspires you and makes you want to, be your best self, right? So with the red lines here going from the sun and the moon, it's like, how can you, what what new thing can you do? How can you express yourself in a new way that will make your life more ideal, or that will make society? Because Neptune is not a personal planet. Neptune is connected to the whole as well. It's what we call an outer planet. So because it's farther away, right, from in terms of our solar system, it's not real close like Venus or Mercury or Mars are. It's way out there. So it's connected to the collective. So how can we get our voice out in a more inspired way, to kind of serve the greater whole in a way that's more authentic to us as well? Because Neptune's in the sign of Aries, which is even more connected to authenticity than Leo is. Leo is more about expressing our talents in an authentic way. Aries is about just being authentic and being true to ourselves, and like not caving into any pressure from outside from anyone else. You would rather walk away than be dishonest to yourself or disloyal to yourself with Aries energy. So Neptune in Aries is saying, what is the highest version of myself, and what is the most ideal? How can I be the most ideal person I can be out in the world? Okay. So we've got that piece of it. And then on the other side, we've got the sun and the moon going to Venus over here, this green planet. And Venus is about our attraction to beauty. And it's like beauty in our immediate surroundings. It's like, how can we make our immediate space more beautiful and more attractive and more just, yeah, some place we want to be, some place. And then, it's not just the sun, it's the moon. So how can we feel better? How can we feel more, um, just more in touch with ourselves? How can we express ourselves in a way that makes us feel better about ourselves? Like that's really the core meaning of it. But with Venus being in the sign of Libra, it's really not just about ourselves. It's also about our relationships and the give and take between yourself and someone else or something else. That could be your pets as well. But how can you show up in a way that's more that creates a better flow of give and take, a more balance in the relationship, so that not one person or one side is doing all the work, but you're both giving and receiving in equal measure. Not exactly necessarily doing the exact same things, but at least, putting out the same amount of energy and supporting each other in a way. That's what Venus and Libra wants. Like Venus and Libra says, if I text you, you better text me back, or I'm not going to be happy. If I do the dishes in the house, on Sunday night, then you better take out the trash, or do something, do your part. I'm not going to be doing it all, and I'm not going to expect you to do it all either. That's Venus would in Libra would not be happy if one person were doing all the work. So yeah, that's the other piece of this. It's how can I show up in a way where I'm expressing myself, but I'm also, honoring the expressions of others and not doing all the talking, but letting them express themselves as well. Each person taking turns and making it flow easily, and each person doing their part. And then, Venus then is going to Neptune here as well with this other red line. And I forgot to say the red lines are about needs. They're about drives. They're about things we feel we must do. So that we need this in our lives with this eclipse. We need this more beautiful, more elegant, I guess, expression of ourselves. And we also need it to serve some kind of higher ideal. And with Venus and Neptune being connected in this as well, there needs to be an element of romance or of generosity, of what's the right word? Yeah, I guess an element of flow, of romance, of ambiance, of like a beautiful aspect of it, something that just makes you feel good and inspires you in how you're expressing yourself out in the world. Okay. And how you're also allowing others to do the same. And this is kind of nice because, this whole getting out of our comfort zone thing, that can be challenging because, people tend to edit themselves and wonder if they're going to fit in or not. And, am I going to be judged and all that kind of stuff? Well, with this Venus and Neptune involvement in this eclipse, people are going to be a little bit more understanding and more generous and more willing to put up with, I guess, for lack of a better word, things that are a little bit weird, as long as they feel authentic, as long as you can always sense when someone's being kind of a fraud, right? When someone's being fake. So as long as they feel like you're being yourself, they're going to be a lot more generous to allowing you to express whatever you need to express, whatever you feel called to express, in the moment, even if it seems weird to them, because they know it's true and because they can see in your energy that it's true for you. And that's what matters at this time. So don't worry so much about having to, about what other people think and if they're, if I'm being weird or, if it's safe kind of to put myself out there. As long as you're being authentic and true to yourself, you're going to find that people are going to be forgiving for the next 6 months. So that's just kind of tuck that away in the back of your head somewhere. Okay. All right. Now, on the other side of this, we don't have the sun and moon going to Pluto, but we do have Mercury and Jupiter going to Pluto. So that is another important aspect of this eclipse because the Jupiter and Mercury energy is working with the sun and moon as well. So that pulls it in a little bit into this Pluto element. And Pluto is intensity. Pluto is depth. Pluto goes, into the subconscious realm even and pulls things up that we weren't aware of. So you can expect, getting a lot of insights and reflecting on things and going kind of deep deeper than usual in your conversations, even when they relate to the big picture stuff like philosophy or religion or, something that's, kind of the overarching themes in society. People are going to be digging in and analyzing them and, finding out what it means. And is this really serving us? And Pluto is in the sign of Aquarius as well. And Aquarius is about our connection to the whole, to our connection to society, our connection to the groups we belong to our teams at work or whatever, to our families, to organizations, to volunteer groups, to whatever groups you're a part of. That's like there's going to be some intensity about showing up and expressing your skills in this bigger, more expansive way, this bigger version of yourself, in order to make some to rearrange or to restructure some element of what's going on in society. And this doesn't necessarily mean you have to go out there and run for Congress or something. It's just doing your piece. That's all that you need to do. It's just your unique role that needs to be expressed. And each and every one of us, whatever, we just by existing, we have some effect on the world. So it's asking you with this eclipse to do your piece and to express yourself in a bigger way, in a more expansive way, to have courage and to have heart and to show up in a way that's uniquely you in the world. And it's saying that that's going to have an intense effect on society in some way, even if it's a tiny way. But it's still important because it still could have an effect even on the subconscious of society as a whole, believe it or not. So yeah, that's important to know, and something else to kind of tuck away in the back of your head. It's important to show up every day as authentically you as you can, even if authentically you that day means kind of hiding under the covers and just reflecting and writing your thoughts down on a piece of paper and just getting that emotion out there. It can be that, or it can be standing in front of a crowd with a loudspeaker motivating people to support some cause. It can be anything on the spectrum of life, but it's doing your unique piece and doing it in a bigger way and a more expansive way. Okay, so we've got that. And then the other thing that I have not talked about yet is this whole this like house-shaped structure, depending on how you look at it. There's different kinds of triangles in this. So we've got this grand trine here with the three big, like the big triangle, and then we've got these two little triangles, and then we've got kites in this. It's a beautiful energy. The green energy, the green lines is about energy that wants to flow smoothly and easily, not necessarily meaning that everything is going to be smooth and easy, but at least the energy among these planets wants to flow in a way that's unimpeded and uninterrupted and just kind of, goes naturally like electricity through a circuit of wires, So these planets that are connected in this are, pretty extraordinary because we've got Uranus at the head of it, which Uranus is about being in the moment, really. Has no concern whatsoever for the past, no concern whatsoever for the future. It's just what's happening right now. And it comes in waves, and it's sometimes as a beat as well. It's like, now I'm on, now I'm off, now I'm on, now I'm off, now I'm on, now I'm off, like boom, 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 boom. And it's very, very present. Sometimes that makes it very spontaneous. That makes it sometimes unexpected because things come out of the blue that, you have no idea where they came from. But it's also kind of exciting because it's often it brings change as well. Often it breaks patterns or breaks things that weren't working before, especially with this connection to Pluto. These are both what we call outer planets, meaning they're not close to the Earth. They're kind of way out there in the solar system. So they have a collective focus as well as that, although they can be, of course, present in your day-to-day life as well, but they also there's a collective element to it. So it has some reflection on society. And with Uranus and Pluto, often that's breaking old patterns that in society that don't serve. So that can be a restructuring of things in general, like maybe in even in the government or in here Mercury or sorry Uranus is in the sign of Gemini. That's sometimes connected to the media or Gemini's about curiosity. So Uranus in Gemini is about like always wanting to learn all kinds of different things, but it's also often connected with the media, with trading back and forth, exchanging ideas, exchanging information. It's connected with technology as well. And so going to Pluto, we're probably going to see a lot more speeding up with this smooth energy of new ideas, stuff coming out of the subconscious mind into our present day reality with no warning whatsoever with this. But the energy flows smoothly, or at least it wants to. And then there's this connection with Uranus or with Neptune as well, which makes it, serve the highest good, serve the higher consciousness. So that's a beautiful energy to have as part of this. And then the connection on the other side with Mercury and Venus is beautiful communication, beautiful connection of ideas, beautiful understanding of what's happening right in the moment. So it's a very dynamic energy with Uranus at the head of this. It brings in the higher ideals and the spiritual insights and that kind of stuff. So you may be having dreams, like or more dreams than usual, or psychic insights or stuff like that coming up from the subconscious level that are creating a more beautiful environment for you as part of this whole eclipse. Um, so yeah, it's very dynamic, very exciting, very, very powerful, and very deep energy that's meant to serve a higher purpose. So I like that for all of us. Um, one thing I should say about this, though, is these shorter lines with like the stars in the middle. That's what we call in vibrational astrology the sixth vibe, and the sixth vibe is wanting to be together with people who are like-minded, who really, like you want to be with people who really get you, where you don't have to explain things when you crack a joke and they get the punchline. You don't have to explain it to them. So there's a real kind of feeling like you want to be in that environment with people who think like you, and that can make it difficult to be with people who don't think like with you, and to like have to explain the things that if someone's not on the same wavelength as you, you may get a little bit irritated if you have to do that. So just be aware that that is a strong part of this energy, and that we may need to make more of an effort than usual to reach the people who aren't on the same wavelength as us, and to explain the punchline of the joke, or um, yeah, to explain what's happening underneath the surface, and to have a little bit more patience than we might ordinarily have to help get people on the same page. And I think one way to do that actually is to, at least this works for me, is to like go to places early when I need to when I want to be on the same page with the group, or with someone who I'm not really close to. I try to get there early and just kind of, be there and feel their vibe a little bit first, and kind of absorb the energy a little bit of the room before before talking about anything important. Just to kind of, because that helps the energy of yourself and the other people in the room to kind of blend and meld and kind of sync up a little bit, and then you can get into the conversation that you want to have, and then you're kind of a little bit more in sync already, so things tend to flow a little bit more easily. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that helps you with this. So yeah, that's more of what's going on. Um, what else? Um, we've got we've got this mystic rectangle here, this green rectangle between Mercury, Venus, Pluto, and Neptune, which is about like um, feeling into the intensity of our deepest highest, most ideal desires and communicating about that in a way that's beautiful and harmonious and that people really enjoy listening to, and it just makes sense to them easily. So there's that piece of it. So we may see more beautiful articles or more beautiful posts in Facebook or in whatever uh, social platform you're using, or just out there in regular magazines or books or whatever. So there's that. There definitely could be some beautiful writing or some great literature that's produced at this time about when I say this time, I mean again in the next 6 months, that will really capture the feeling of where we could go as a society, and put out some ideas on how we can reach that, and what's a better way to live than we are now and how we can get there. So there's that. And there's also this very inventive piece. Uranus is often associated with inventions as well, especially when it's connected to Mercury in this way and Venus and well, all the planets. It's just tends to be very inventive and creative and again, producing new things, new ways of doing things, new patterns, new technologies, all of that. So I think we're going to see some pretty exciting stuff coming up in the next 6 months, with Uranus being at the peak of this and making connections to so many other planets as part of this eclipse energy period. And one thing I forgot to say is when we've got two planets coming together, like this moon sun, exactly together, they're actually vibrating at some level with every single planet and asteroid and other element in the chart. So even though you don't see a line, for example, connected between sun and moon and Mars, they're still vibrating together, and they're still part of an energy circuit that's important to us. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And with in this case, Sun, Moon, Mars, that's about using and acting in a way that brings more security, because Mars is in Cancer, brings more safety, kind of builds that nest egg in a way that allows you to express yourself uh, in a way that feels okay for you, and that is like I said, bigger, gets you out of your comfort zone, but still doesn't feel so overwhelming that you freeze, like a deer in the headlights or something. So yeah, there's that piece of it as well. And oh, and I forgot to say also, before this eclipse even happened in the morning on this day, we had the moon making a nice connection to Saturn. And that helped us to kind of reflect in the morning and think about our goals and where we want to go and what we want to achieve, and just kind of be quiet and focus on what's really important to us in the time coming ahead. So that if you can take a minute or two to kind of just think about what you were thinking about yesterday morning, before the eclipse happened, in terms of your goals and your aspirations and where you want to go in the next 6 months or so, and write that down so you can go back and refer to that and remind yourself when you're having a down day, and kind of get your energy back, get your focus back. So that was a nice way to start out this day, is having that Moon Saturn connection. Um, what else did I want to say? I'm going to check my other computer for a second. So I'm sorry if I'm going to turn away and check my notes. So let's see. Um, yeah, I think the only other thing I wanted to say is just to show you something that's going to look horrible for a second. But this is the midpoints that are happening on this day. Forget all this stuff. What I really wanted you to see is this one here and this one, because these these two are working together, And I'll show you where this is in the chart, but I'm especially focused on this because this one is so tight. It's just 2 minutes of orb. So that means that the energy of it is very, very strong. So let me show you the chart and show you where this is. That's these four, yeah, from Chiron, Vesta, Pallas, Athena, and the planet Saturn. These four are working together. So what does that mean? So, okay, so Saturn is about focusing on what's essential and what's gonna last over the long term. And it cuts out anything extraneous. It gets to the core essence and focuses only on that. This is all, these three of these four planets are in the sign of Aries as well, which is again, which is about authenticity and being only true to yourself, not allowing anything that's not authentic to you to be present. So Saturn being in the sign of Aries is saying, who are you? And who are you really? Like underneath all the masks and all that stuff. What's really important to you? All right. So we've got that and Chiron. Um, Chiron here is about speaking your truth, but it's often a truth that is learned through some kind of lesson. It's like there's some kind of pain is a strong word, but it can be, it can be a painful lesson that allows you to discover that truth and then speaking it in the world. So Saturn's like, what are the core things you've learned in the last in your lifetime, in the last, whatever, how many long years you've lived, what are the core things that you want to take forward and do Pallas with? Pallas Athena is about developing your skills and taking them into a new level. So does that sound familiar? Because that kind of echoes this whole Leo thing, right? The four planets in Leo. So this kind of emphasize that even more and saying, how do you want to develop yourself? How do you want to nurture yourself, nurture your skills and talents, and create a strategy around those based on what you've learned from potentially difficult experience, but in some way you've learned it the hard way and it's now true for you. How can you take that truth, those nuggets, the silver lining of the difficult experiences you've had in your life, and use those to become a better version of yourself, to develop some new skill, some new talent, or to help others do that? That could be your children, that could be your best friend, that could be someone you mentor at work, whatever. But there's definitely, it's not only about developing your own skills and talents and taking them out into a community where you're able to really serve that community because it's kind of niche, but it also can be about helping someone else to do that also and to find their way to serve, their unique, special way that they were brought into this world to serve based on things that they've learned in their life, potentially the hard way. And then we've also got Vesta at the midpoint of Chiron and Pallas. So that Vesta is about cutting out everything that's not pure and only it kind of emphasizes that authenticity even more because it's saying, I will not bend or break or listen to anyone else or be anything other than myself. I will be pure and true to myself in developing these talents and these skills that I'm trying to develop in myself or in someone else because I can see that they're part of who that person is. So I want to help them to develop that and then bring them into this community, this niche community and offer them to the world. So that kind of brings a little bit more specificity to how we're developing our skills and talents and putting them out there in a bigger way. Okay, it's those skills and talents that deep down are part of who you are and that deep down that you were called to bring out in this lifetime. So yeah, that was the last piece I wanted to talk about with this eclipse. So what I just shared is the energy that's available to all of us from this eclipse. and it will speak to each person differently depending on your own individual chart and how the collective energy that we had on the day of the eclipse, at the time of the eclipse, connects to your personal chart. So, having said that, I want to also say that I do readings for people. So I can, if you want, we can set up a time and I can look at this energy with your chart and give you a lot more specificity on how this eclipse is going to affect you and what areas are important for you to focus on and exactly how you can develop your skills and talents in that way to be bigger and shine brighter than you are now, and also what you need to look out for, what the challenges are that you may face coming up, and with suggestions of how to navigate those more easily. Because that's what astrology does. It gives us, it's by showing the flow of energy and how it's affecting us, it gives you clues on how to develop yourself and make yourself how just make life flow more easily for you, because you're developing your skills and talents. And when you're using your skills and talents to the best that you can, that always feels great, right? But it also helps you to show like where your challenges are and where your blind spots are and what you need to, like gives you suggestions on ways to navigate those to give you more control of your life so that, the hard things aren't so hard, but you actually can navigate those in a way that flows more easily, that doesn't trigger your other people as much, doesn't trigger yourself as much, and helps to keep your what's coming up and you know how to handle it. So yeah, if you're interested in that, you can check my link tree and contact me through my website or through any of the social media platforms that I'm on, and I'd be happy to set that up for you. Okay. And yeah, I hope this serves you. I hope if you have any questions, you can also put those in comments and I'll try to answer those. But that's what I've got for you. So I hope you enjoyed this. Have a great day. I'll catch you next time.